Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Mental Toughness and Body Show, the place where we push the boundaries of high performance in mind, body, and business. I'm your host, Robb Evans, and today we have an extraordinary guest, Dave Walker. He's the former US Comptroller. Now, what does that mean? Basically, the accountant for the US government. So, Dave is a financial expert, he's a thought leader, and a man who has navigated the highest levels of government and economics. Former Chief Accountability Officer of the United States, he's been at the forefront of fiscal responsibility. And in this episode, in a moment when we cross to the interview, we are going to dive into some really challenging questions about the state of the economy. At the time of recording this, President Trump has come in for his second term, and we're going to get some hard-hitting questions. So please strap yourself in and listen to Dave, his expertise. This is a really great conversation. Enjoy.
Okay.
Hi, Dave, and thank you so much for joining me today on the show. Given your extensive experience in fiscal policy and government, what impact do you think President Trump's presidency is going to have on Australia?
Well, the United States is the largest economy on earth. It's the leading superpower on earth. And, obviously what happens here has a ripple effect around the world. The big issue that we have to focus on, that frankly Australia is ahead of us on, is how do we put our finances in order? I mean, we have
Yes.
too much debt as a percentage of the economy. It's going higher. We need to get that under control. President Trump is trying to start with constraining cutting federal spending, addressing what he refers to as fraud, waste, abuse, and mismanagement. We should have zero tolerance for it, but it'll never be zero, especially in government. Uh, but we're going to have to do a lot more than that. I mean, we're going to have to relook at our social programs, reform them to make them solvent, sustainable, secure. We're going to have to reform our tax system in a manner that's pro-growth but generates more revenues as a percentage of GDP. We're going to have to look at defense and other spending and figure out how we can save in those areas. All those things are going to have to be on the table. I'm hoping that we can make some progress since he doesn't have to seek re-election. And typically politicians are concerned about getting reelected. And when they have concern about getting reelected, they don't want to make tough choices. But we need to make some tough choices.
What are some of those tough choices do you think that are really going to make a difference?
Well, the biggest problem that we have from a fiscal standpoint is spending is out of control. Spending as a percentage of the economy is too high. It's projected to go higher. Our fastest growing expense is interest, for which you get nothing. Our second fastest growing expense is healthcare. We spend much more as a percentage of our economy than other countries, and yet we get below average results. We've written a blank check for healthcare at the federal level. You can't write a blank check for healthcare, it'll bankrupt you. And so, we're going to have to reform our healthcare system. We're going to have to reform our social security system to make it solvent, sustainable, secure, because on its current path, the related trust fund is going to go to zero in less than 10 years. We're going to have to relook at our defense strategy and based on current and future threats, not past threats, recognizing the dramatic changes in the security posture and the modern warfare as compared to what it's been in the past. I mean, we're going to have to reform our tax system to make it more pro-growth and maintain competitiveness, but we're going to have to generate more revenues as a percentage of the economy. So part of it is significantly reducing projected spending and increasing projected revenues as a percentage of the economy. The combination of those two things will help us get debt to GDP down to a reasonable and sustainable level over the next 10 to 15 years.
And with the China's influence growing, inflation pressures rising, how do you see the US role in global economic stability, and what do you think Australia should be watching for?
Well, right now the dollar is represents about 60% of reserve currencies, uh, which gives us a tremendous competitive advantage in cost of capital in trade and in the ability to impose economic sanctions on rogue nations and other players. Um, but that's being questioned. You have the BRICS nations that are talking about creating an alternative currency. backed 40% by gold and 60% by a basket of other currencies. We need to take that seriously. But the main thing we need to do is not impose sanctions on them. We need to put our finances in order, because the reason that we've got a challenge is because we haven't put our finances in order. That's a key, if you will. Um, so I think that President Trump also is, tends to look at tariffs as a potential tool to achieve objectives in areas other than economics, border security, and a variety of other things. My view is it's in nobody's interest to have a trade war, much less a global trade war, and I think that can and hopefully will be averted. So the main thing is we need to get our house in order, and if we
Yeah.
get, and we need to build stronger relationships, because nobody can go it alone in today's world, including the United States.
So when we do have these uncertain times, what do you think are the qualities that really a president needs, a great leader needs during uncertainty?
Well, let's talk about what a good leader is. I mean, a leader is very different than a manager. A leader is somebody who gets things done with and through others, who looks ahead, who sees the trends, the challenges, the opportunities, who takes affirmative steps to capitalize on the opportunities and mitigates the risk, who sets the tone, sets the priorities, who hires good people, delegates, holds them responsible and accountable for results, who's an excellent communicator. I mean, communications is really critical, especially when you're talking about dealing with difficult issues and making transformational change. I mean, those are some of the attributes of a good leader. Frankly, the biggest deficit that we've had in recent years is a leadership deficit, and that needs to be rectified.
So at this time, we often talk about here in Australia, I know we have a different political system, but that first 100 days of power, and there seems to be this drive, certainly from the media, what are you going to do in the first 100 days, etc. What's your sense of what's the feeling in the general public over there that yes, it's positive, we're going to get the change that we've really been looking for that we haven't had? What's your sense?
Well, first, our country is divided. I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, President Trump won the Electoral College. He also won the popular vote, but not by very much margin. Okay, um, you know, we have quite a bit of partisanship. Two major parties in this country. There's an ideological divide between the two parties with regard to what they see as the role and function of the federal government. Uh, I think what's important to understand is that President Trump ran primarily on the issues of the economy, inflation, border security, and anti-crime, and then international stability. So his efforts have been focused primarily on those areas as part of the first 100 days. He's trying to do as much as he can through what we call executive orders, which are within the power of the president. At least he thinks they are, and they're really policy priorities. They're not law, uh, and so he's going to be able to get some things done through that. But the really heavy lifting stuff that needs to be done is going to take a change in law, and in some cases, we may need to have changes in our constitution in order to be able to make sure that we stay on a prudent and sustainable path. So he's going to do as much as he can through his own executive authority, although it's not as great as he thinks it is. And But ultimately, it's going to take legislation, which is a lot tougher, especially given the close margins that we have in our House and Senate. Very close margins.
Yeah, interesting. Final question, Dave. Obviously, you get called in from time to time with your role to assist with federally and so forth. Do you have a role, or what's your role at the moment, or into the future in this presidency?
I've been inside of government and outside of government. Right now, I'm outside of government. I do have opportunities to testify in Congress and also to provide uh, private advice in counsel to people in government. As of now, I don't plan to go into the current administration. I definitely am not going to run for office. It's not a merit and integrity based endeavor, if you know what I mean. Uh,
Yes.
but we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm happy to do public service in an appropriate role at an appropriate time, but um, we'll see what the future holds.
Well, Dave, I love your perspectives. Thank you for your service. It's having an impact around the world, and certainly we're feeling it here in Australia. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks, Rob. Always a pleasure. Love Australia.